What's up everybody, welcome to the first installment of the ARMCHAIR Analyst series where we take a deep dive into a singular map and break down all the crucial moments that you may have missed. An incredible amount of action is always happening both on-screen and off-screen in this game, so it's easy to miss the important decisions players are making moment to moment. Don't interpret that as a dig at the Observer team, far from it actually. I think they do a really great job, all things considered. It's just the nature of the game. You are bound to miss things here and there because there's always so much happening. So I'm here to discuss why certain things occur in specific ways, as well as to help everyone get a better understanding of the more minuscule things that occur in teamfights. This week we're breaking down the third map in the series between the Shanghai Dragons and the Dallas Fuel. If you're new here, feel free to subscribe so you never miss a day of content, but with that, let's jump right into the analysis. Now right off the bat we can see that the Shanghai squad is running a rather perplexing composition, especially on the defensive side of things. Typically you would want to run the Moira when you have 3 or more tanks, as to soak up as much non-lethal damage as possible and rapidly build up her coalescence. On this map in particular, it sort of makes sense because every teamfight occurs on the point itself, or if not, relatively nearby, so therefore Moira can heal everyone clumped together whilst also throwing out some orbs to deal damage here and there too. Not a bad idea per se, just something irregular for this map. That being said, it's also worth noting the composition for Dallas. A neat trick they used at the start of the map that I haven't noticed in other games was to have Taimu shoot a sonic arrow as Hanzo, and then quickly swap over to a secondary tank hero. The purpose of this is to try and gain some visibility and insight when first approaching the point. Now to start off the first engagement, Dallas make their plans evident as they send both Mickey and Effect onto the high ground to counter the setup of Shanghai. Mickey is positioned in front of the point whilst Effect dashes overhead and gets himself behind the defensive setup. More often than not, Traces will do this simply to be annoying more so than anything else. As you can see, just the threat of Effect picking off a squishy on the side of Shanghai was enough to turn a few other members around and allow for Dallas to quickly move in and start dealing damage whilst they're distracted. This fight quickly falls short for the Fuel however, as Shanghai picks off a few members and sends them back to the spawn. Regardless of the outcome, we can see the intent from Fuel here. On the secondary attack, Dallas immediately secures the high ground once again, but falls short thanks to a great hold hook combo from the Dragons. You can see Mickey tried to assist, but it was just a little too late. On their way out, Zushu manages to pull in Harry Hook just as his resurrect animation was ending, staggering the respawn and forcing Dallas to wait even longer to try and advance onto the point a third time. Realizing that the attempted high ground pushes haven't quite been working out thus far, AKM swaps over to Pharah. Both Altering and Undead are able to deal damage to a Pharah, but with a Mercy to pocket him, AKM knows that he should mostly be safe if he keeps his distance, especially considering that there was no Zen on the side of Dragons to place a Discord orb on him in the sky, an intelligent adjustment from him. As Dallas push onto the point once again, Undead goes for a rather risky flank but times it perfectly. Thanks to the communication with his teammates, the audio cue of Winston diving into the point, as well as the brief glimpses of Zen orbs flying by, Undead knows that Dallas is engaged and that Custer is still back at the entry point. Now is the time to make his move and try to catch him off guard. This is exactly what he does as he immediately finds him out of position from the rest of his team. Undead thinks that the rest of Fuel are distracted and tries to capitalize on the element of surprise, but to no avail as Mickey shuts his Deadeye down immediately. You have to assume that the very moment Custer was flashed, he was yelling out to his team so that they could try and get back to save him. Shanghai pick up a few other kills, including this tremendous stagger onto Mickey, and that's another teamfight win for them yet again. Dallas has now already eaten up more than half of their time to attack the first point here on Hollywood. To start the next fight, we actually see a few ultimates used right off the bat. Five King uses his sound barrier and connects with 3 members of the Shanghai team. Mickey then uses his self-destruct a fraction of a second later, probably not what he intended, but Taimu actually makes an incredible play here that would go entirely unnoticed had this clip not been slowed down. Whether it was intentional or not, Taimu positioned his leap just perfectly enough so that when he lands behind the tanks, he subtly boops them out of position. It's nothing major at first glance, not to the effect of a Lucio boop, but it's still just enough of a bump so that Mickey's mech is able to find and eliminate Zushu from the fight, the only member of the Shanghai team with an ultimate at the ready. Reacting immediately to the pick, Taimu decides to invest more into this fight and uses his primal rage to knock Altering away from the rest of his team, entirely negating the most powerful healer for Shanghai. At this point you would have to assume that Shanghai more or less know the teamfight is over, barring some miraculous individual play, so AKM uses his barrage to make quick work of a few remaining players, and that is the first point secured for Dallas Fuel. Adjusting for the second stretch of the map, which features much longer sightlines, Shanghai make a few swaps. Zushu goes onto the Diva, Roshan onto the Winston, whilst Five King swaps to Mercy, a much more traditional dive composition. Worthy of note here is that Altering decides to stick with the Moira for the time being, perhaps because he was close to ult? An odd choice however, and he is the first to fall in the second portion of the map. Not holding back, Dallas now recognizes that it's a 5v6 so they have the advantage, but also, they're aware of the fact that their initial push onto the high ground caught Shanghai off guard. As you can see, as all of Shanghai dropped down, They are completely disorganized, and Undead and 5 King meet their demise as no tanks on the side of Shanghai are in position to block damage coming through. An interesting decision is made here as Harry Hook decides to use his Resurrect onto Effect after the teamfight. Initially you would be right to question that choice. What would be the point? Effect is playing one of the fastest moving characters in the game and the teamfight is already over. But as we can see from this overhead view, it's actually a pretty wise decision at that, as Effect is on duty covering one of the 2 exit points of Shanghai, a position in which he can very quickly escape from with his recall ability if need be. Meanwhile, AKM sets up on the high ground with Harry Hook in his pocket, a difficult vantage point for Shanghai to topple without investing a lot of effort and in doing so, neglecting the payload. Moving on, Effect continues to be a thorn in the side of Shanghai as he yet again presses behind enemy lines. It's an interesting thing to consider because Effect has been such a nuisance up to this point already that even without him necessarily being present and dealing damage, the threat of him merely showing up is enough to cause some paranoia and keep Shanghai guessing, never allowing them to get truly comfortable in their setup. Now this play from Undead is actually quite hilarious. You can see in the kill feed that he cleans up both healers with his Deadeye, but he actually wouldn't have done so if it weren't for a critical error from Taimu. Moving into the perspective of Undead in the replay, he actually activates his ultimate quite far away from where the main engagement is happening. You typically see this quite frequently when Winstons are in their primal rage coming into a McCree, as it's rather likely that the Deadeye will be able to kill an ulting Winston before his angry fists can kill the McCree. Thanks to Taimu being in his primal rage form, however, he swats Undead into a perfect line of sight, something that the rest of Dallas couldn't exactly have prepared for. Thus, the skulls lock on and Undead wins the teamfight thanks to the assist from Taimu. Going into the next fight, perhaps the penultimate fight for Dallas if they fail in this attempt, we can see that both teams are stockpiling ults. Immediately, however, Effect goes for the greedy pulse bomb and gets nothing for it. Then we see Mickey's Diva Bomb go off in the background, whilst Custer perhaps prematurely uses his Transcendence in an attempt to keep AKM alive through his visor, one would assume, if he were to have popped it. Despite their best efforts, AKM still falls to a sneaky Diva Bomb from Zushu, and suddenly, despite being about even going into the fight, Shanghai are now the ones with the ultimate advantage here. Undead fails to pick up anything with his Deadeye, but kills are being traded back and forth throughout the duration of this engagement. With spawn advantage in mind, Shanghai knows that they decisively won that fight and that Dallas has to back off. The final attempt for Dallas begins with a minor battle for the high ground, wherein Altering greedily uses his Coalescence, but is quickly dispatched of by AKM. AKM is then rapidly taken out of his visor and defeated as Undead lands a great stun from a kind of awkward angle. As Dallas continue to put pressure onto the point, 5 King zips around and manages to resurrect Roshan, giving Shanghai another big body to throw onto the point in order to stall things out while Shanghai attempts to regroup. As they were dispatched of early in the engagement, members of Dallas have respawned and flooded back onto the point, regaining the upper hand in the teamfight as the timer rolls into overtime. Now, heading into what is undoubtedly the final teamfight if Dallas are to falter here, we can see that they are the ones with the distinct ult advantage. The plan here from Shanghai was to have Dia emerge from the right hand side of the payload and follow up with the tanks jumping in from the left. However, before this can take effect, Custer lands some great shots onto Dia as Effect finishes them off. A great stick and a heap of damage to follow up is enough to destabilize Shanghai and secure the second checkpoint for Dallas. With a high ground setup here, Dallas is trying to ensure that Shanghai don't stall the point at all, as they essentially only have time for one solid push. With incredibly quick reaction times, Zushu turns onto Effect and eats a potentially devastating pulse bomb as Roshan pushes the rest of Dallas back away from the point with his primal rage, countering the plans of Dallas and contesting the point for the time being. Whilst mostly blocked by Zushu, AKM's visor is still enough to all but clean up Roshan. Behind the payload, Custer is forced into his Transcendence due to the pulse bomb from Dia. However, as we slow things down, we can see that perhaps Custer was panicked, or that there was a slight lapse in communication as the speed boost from Harry Hook clearly ensured that he was a safe distance away from the explosion. Again, perhaps it was a worthy Transcendence, however, though, as if Custer were to have fallen there, he might not have even had another decent chance to use his Transcendence. Nevertheless, Dallas uses this moment of near invulnerability to finish off the teamfight and make some significant progress with the payload. Entering the final engagement of the round, we see Altering swap over onto the Mei in hopes of stalling out the payload as long as possible. Mickey and Taimu are in such great positions, however, that they actually force the ice block out before Altering is even able to leave spawn. Effect quickly picks off Roshan with a pulse bomb, and Mickey sets up a smart Diva Bomb on top of the trailer, meaning that Zushu was bound to be caught in the blast radius no matter what he did to try and avoid it. All that's left now for Shanghai are a few squishy targets which Dallas are able to wipe out with ease. So whilst Dallas were indeed able to take the payload through to the end of the map, they failed to do so with any time remaining as every single checkpoint was essentially captured in their final attempt. A well-rounded defensive effort from Shanghai, but Dallas is still able to reach the end of the map. Moving into the attack phase for Shanghai, let's first look at the opposing compositions once again. Shanghai are trying something we got a glimpse at a few times on Horizon in Stage 1, that being a team composition consisting of 4 tanks as well as a Moira. Obviously Lucio is the better pick here for the final spot in stage 2 over a Mercy, as this speed boost is far more valuable now than a Mercy who can no longer bring back multiple fallen heroes. Now the intent with this composition, as it has been coined the Slambulance, is essentially to rush onto the point without hesitation and surprise the opposition. Naturally, as the fight progresses, having 4 tanks in play means that both Altering and Roshan will be able to build up their ults much faster than Custer and Harryhook for Dallas. It's a bold strategy where if the initial attempt falls short, you'll typically see a drastic change in composition as it's incredibly difficult to try again. The enemies will know exactly what to expect and position themselves accordingly, making it far more difficult to get results. So utilizing the speed boost, the entire Shanghai lineup is able to make it all the way onto the point in under 15 seconds. Now that's pretty tough to react to if you're the Dallas Fuel, especially with their composition. A Tracer is just not going to be able to deal enough damage into the tanks, and both healers have incredible movement abilities to get away if Effect were to try and flank them. Most of the heroes on the side of Dallas are also rather stationary, making it all the more difficult for them. Roadhog, Orisa, and Zen are no match for numerous opposing tanks that have the benefits of a speed boost. Within 20 seconds, Altering is already halfway towards his coalescence and the entire team has moved beyond the point and into the cafe. Kills come in incredibly fast as expected, and before Dallas can even truly react, the teamfight is over and Shanghai has already taken the first point. Moving forward, I'd be surprised if we didn't see variations of the strategy used a lot more on this map as stage 2 progresses. Moving into the second phase, we have quite a few swaps coming in. AKM goes back onto the Pharah, again a wise choice as Shanghai has no answer for the time being. However, Pharah is not a real damage dealer when combating an array of tanks, especially when Rein can block rockets, Hog can heal through them, D.Va can eat them, and Zarya can easily gain charge from them. We also see Effect move on to the Doomfist. Now this choice is rather odd. Whilst Doomfist is similar to Tracer in that he is able to quickly enter a fight, deal some damage, and then use his movement abilities to get away, unless Doomfist can charge a tank wildly out of position, he's just not going to be all too beneficial. One thing that Doomfist does have over a Tracer, however, is the notion of verticality. If he's ever in danger, he's able to quickly jump and slam away, whilst only a single tank on the side of Shanghai is even able to make chase. We also see Undead quickly swap over to the Widow. As mentioned earlier, both Point B and Point C are great for long-range engagements. Now this is a very weird moment. Not really too sure what to say about this other than that it definitely caught me by surprise, so I'm sure that it surprised Dallas as well. It seems as though maybe Shanghai wanted to swap even more heroes before truly committing to a good push on Point B, or perhaps Dia genuinely just saw a good opportunity to grab. It's hard to tell without seeing it from his perspective. In doing so, they combined the Wild Graviton with a D.Va Bomb and picked off both DPS characters from the Fuel. Meanwhile, in the background, you can barely see it, but Taimu got a very easy kill onto Undead as everyone on the side of Shanghai was focused up towards the payload. Turning the corner into the next engagement, we see that every single support ult is at the ready for both teams. Yet again, Custer kind of rushes into things with his Transcendence. There was absolutely no pressure being put onto him by members of Shanghai, so you have to assume that Taimu was probably screaming for heals, and Custer just committed to his ultimate. It's definitely unfortunate, but not the worst thing in the world, as Shanghai essentially wastes their support ults as well as this Rein ult. Now as this engagement progresses, it becomes apparent to Dallas that the only person who can reasonably contest them on the high ground is Zushu. Knowing this, they try to take full advantage of the upper positioning. A lot of ults start coming out from both teams here as Shanghai continue to push the payload. We see yet another coalescence from Altering and then another grab from Dia, which more than anything does a great job in stalling out Dallas for the time being. In a great play, Dia is quick to react as he gets stuck with a pulse bomb from Effect, but is able to shield himself to get 100 charge and just shred through Effect's remaining HP. A sound barrier and a Rein ult come out for Shanghai. They are clearly committing everything they have to this teamfight, and it eventually pays off as they capture the second point. Oh, and Altering has yet another coalescence ready because why not? Every member of Dallas Fuel immediately begins to back up as they know that Undead on the Widow is easily able to snipe them as they flee, potentially causing a huge stagger. Finally swapping over to more apt DPS heroes, Effect goes onto the Reaper in order to efficiently deal with the tanks from up close. It's not entirely possible to run and hide on this final stretch of Hollywood. AKM also swaps, this time over to Genji to frustrate the backline of Shanghai. As the replay comes to an end, we are just able to catch a glimpse of Taimu being taken out. He was very close to his primal rage, but regardless, from the position of his ragdoll, you can clearly tell that the timing and communication was just slightly off, as he is so far out of position from the rest of his team who are only just now making their way onto the point. Harryhook activated his Valkyrie just as Taimu died, and it's probable that he had a resurrect available and was looking for a window of opportunity in which to swoop down. Shanghai just weren't going to allow it, however, as they continued to pressure forward. There's no better way to start off the engagement than to demech Mickey, as now Dia has free reign as to where he will drop his Graviton. Also, the Undead Eye now means that everyone from Dallas must hide in order to survive. AKM uses his Genji blade, but is unable to find a single pick before a highly charged Dia is able to drop the grab and wipe him out along with Custer and Taimu to boot. The sound barrier from 5 King was also well timed to counter the Genji blade, as there was no true certainty that Dia could secure those kills. Nothing wrong with investing that extra ultimate to help guarantee the round win, especially with so much time left on the clock in comparison to Dallas when they were in this position. A final coalescence comes out as the round is all but over. A superb job from Shanghai, as they were rarely held back at all throughout the entire offensive effort. Now, should this be attributed to Shanghai's great plays, or more so to the positioning mistakes and ultimate shortcomings of the Dallas defense? It's tough to say with certainty either way, but both aspects definitely played a huge role in Shanghai finishing the map with just under 3 minutes to spare. Now, as we move into the final phase of the map, Dallas has to successfully defend the very first tick on point A in order to simply draw. Adjusting their composition, Dallas recognizes that Shanghai may simply stick with what worked so well for them on point A last time, and that being the Slambulance. AKM on the Reaper is a decent place to start when attempting to counter such an aggressive composition. Again, all members of Shanghai push onto the point with incredible speed, and Dia actually pulls off something I personally had never seen before, didn't even know it was possible. But with his low charge, he's able to essentially rocket jump himself up to the top of the cafe, a fantastic position to put yourself in so early on in the teamfight. Zushu was able to take out AKM, but Dallas managed to swing this initial fight back around as they pushed their way back onto the point and Custer deals some incredible damage in AKM's absence. Sticking with the same composition for the next fight, Altering has his coalescence ready to go, and most other ults could conceivably be generated throughout the next engagement. Taimu puts himself in a great position to flank and potentially hook a healer away from the rest of the team, however he shoots for no real reason and totally gives away his flank. AKM does his job on Reaper this time around, picking off both tanks in spite of the coalescence in play. A self-destruct comes in to pick off Dia, and that's the end of that fight. Shanghai has one more good opportunity to make this work, but so far, Dallas has adjusted well to the Slambulance and is holding strong. Undead quickly swaps over to Pharah, as for the last time on this map, there really is nothing on the opposing team that can deal with a Pharah. Both Zushu and Altering are staggered quite substantially, delaying the final attempt from Shanghai just a little longer. To accommodate the Pharah, Altering goes on to Mercy in a last-ditch effort. A Lucio ult comes in from 5 King in order to negate any damage from Taimu's Whole Hog, as well as the Pulse Bomb from Effect. Cancelling out 2 ults for just 1 support ult is always a good trade. In a moment of near panic, Dia is brought to roughly half health and decides to go for the risky Graviton directly into Mickey, who could have very easily eaten it had his defense matrix been off cooldown. Unfortunately for Dallas, it wasn't quite there, and the Graviton picks off all the crucial members left on the point, even through Custer's Transcendence. With a final few kills, Shanghai seal the deal and go on to win only their 7th map in the Overwatch League to date, against a Dallas fuel that has looked increasingly strong since the start of Stage 2. A great effort from both teams, but ultimately the outcome of this map can be pinned down to a few key factors, primarily being wasted ults on the side of Dallas, subtle miscommunication from Dallas, efficient utilization of the Slambulance composition from Shanghai, as well as some remarkable individual play from both Altering and Dia. This was a fun match to analyze and goes to show just how well Shanghai can perform. If they're able to nail down some consistency issues as well as fill out the roster with some recent signees, they could certainly be a force to look out for in the coming weeks. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed the breakdown. Be sure to subscribe and stick around for a new analytical video each week on this channel. As always, I'll see you in the next one.